The leather whip cracked through the morning air like thunder, but Cordelia Hayes didn't scream. Blood traced a slow path down her bare back as she stood, wrists bound high above her head to the weathered wooden post in the center of Copper Ridge Town Square. Her green eyes brilliant and unyielding blazed with a defiance that made Mayor Edmund Carver's jaw tighten. "This," Carver declared, his voice echoing sharply off the wooden storefronts and stone facades, "is what happens to women who forget their place." The townspeople had gathered in tense silence. "Miss Hayes," he continued, "has refused a perfectly respectable marriage proposal from Mr. Silas Murdoch. Not once, but 3 times." Cordelia's sweat-soaked dress clung to her skin, torn where the whip had struck, exposing cruel welts across her back. She felt their eyes on her, some brimming with pity, others twisted in judgment, and a few, disturbingly, glinting with approval. Still, she stood tall, her breath ragged but her spine unbent. She would not cry out. She would not give them the pleasure. Perhaps another reminder will help her recall her duties. Carver said coolly, nodding to his deputy. The man raised the whip again. A murmur of unease rippled through the crowd. Old Mrs. Patterson clutched her kerchief to her lips, shaking. Young Jimmy Reeves looked as though he might be sick. Even the gruffest men shuffled uncomfortably in their boots, but no one dared speak. Carver owned their homes, their businesses, their futures. Silas Murdoch stood off to the side, arms folded across his thick chest. At 45, he was the richest cattleman in 3 counties. With money came power, and with power, a smothering entitlement. He watched the scene with smug satisfaction, curling his lip. "You could end this right now, girl," Murdoch called out, his voice rough as gravel. "Say yes, and we'll clean you up. I'll even buy you a new dress for the wedding." Cordelia spat at his feet, her saliva mixing with the dust. The crowd gasped. Even Carver blinked, stunned. No woman had ever defied them so brazenly. "Stubborn as a mule," the mayor muttered under his breath. 5 more lashes. The deputy drew back his arm. But just then, a sound broke through the heavy air, a distant, rhythmic clip-clop of hooves, slow and deliberate, cutting through the morning hush like a blade. All eyes turned. From the misty edge of the main road emerged a lone rider, tall in the saddle, his silhouette carved from steel and shadow. He rode without urgency, but with the quiet authority of a man who feared nothing. Thaddeus Rockwell had arrived. He dismounted in a single, fluid motion, boots crunching against the dirt. A soft jingle of spurs followed each step as he walked forward. At 6'2", with a war-hardened face and the stillness of a gunslinger who'd stared down death and walked away, he didn't have to raise his voice to command silence. The crowd instinctively parted around him. "Mr. Rockwell," Carver began, voice suddenly unsteady, "this is town business." Thaddeus's steel-gray eyes swept the scene. Cordelia's bloodied back, the whip gripped in the deputy's hand. The sneering expression on Murdoch's face. "Cut her down," he said. His voice was low, deadly. Carver bristled. "Now see here, this woman defied a lawful agreement. Mr. Murdoch paid good money for. We're selling women now?" Thaddeus asked, each word sharp enough to draw blood. The menace in his tone wasn't loud, it didn't have to be. Murdoch stepped forward. "It's a debt," he growled. "Her father owed me. She pays it off through marriage, or through other means." Cordelia's cracked lips barely moved, but her words cut through the lies like a knife. "My father never borrowed from you." "You're lying," Murdoch chuckled. "She's got fire. That's why I want her." Thaddeus turned to Cordelia, the edge in his gaze softening just slightly. "What's your name?" "Cordelia Hayes." "Did your father owe this man anything?" "No, sir. He died of fever, never borrowed a cent." Thaddeus nodded once. Then he turned back to Carver and Murdoch. When he spoke, his voice rang across the square like a bell. "Cut her down." Carver's face flushed crimson. "This is my town," he snapped. "My authority." Thaddeus's hand shifted to the polished grip of his Colt. "Your authority ends where my conscience begins," he said coldly. "And my conscience says this stops now." The deputy froze, whip still raised. His eyes darted between the mayor and the man now standing inches from a fight. Murdoch's hand twitched toward his holster. "You're outnumbered," he warned. Thaddeus smiled, a thin, humorless curve of his lips. I've been outnumbered before. The town clock began to chime 8 o'clock. The first gunshot cracked the silence like lightning. One of Murdoch's hired guns crumpled to the ground with a scream, blood pouring from his shoulder. The second didn't even get his pistol halfway out before his wrist exploded in a spray of bone and blood. The crowd scattered in a burst of gasps and screams, but Thaddeus stood firm, his revolver already cocked for the next move. Cordelia's chest heaved as she watched him, not as a savior, but as something rarer, a man who wouldn't let cruelty stand. And for the first time that morning, Mayor Carver said nothing. The third man raised his hands. Anyone else want to dance? Thaddeus asked, Colt's revolver still smoking in his grip. Mayor Carver pressed himself against the storefront wall, pale and sweating. You can't just shoot people in my town. Carver protested, voice trembling. Your laws seem mighty selective, Thaddeus replied coldly. Murdoch froze mid-draw, his weapon half out of the holster. Thaddeus's aim didn't so much as twitch. Draw or drop it, he warned. Murdoch's fingers quivered before he slowly lifted them in surrender. Thaddeus turned to the post where Cordelia hung limp in her bindings. Hold still, he told her gently, with a swift swipe of his knife. The ropes fell away. She collapsed instantly, her legs buckling beneath her. He caught her before she hit the ground. You're safe now, he murmured. My back. She whispered through clenched teeth. I know, he said quietly. Then, louder, someone get Doc Morrison. Silence. The crowd stayed, frozen in place. I said now. Jimmy Reeves broke into a sprint, vanishing toward the doctor's office. Murdoch finally found his voice. You just made a powerful enemy, he growled. Thaddeus shifted Cordelia in his arms, steadying her. Then I'd better make sure they remember my name. He turned to the crowd, eyes hard and unwavering. She's under my protection now. Anyone touches her, they answer to me. No one noticed the lone rider watching from the ridge, his silhouette barely visible against the sky as he turned his horse and headed toward the county seat. Trouble wasn't over, it was just arriving. Inside Doc Morrison's modest office, the doctor worked silently, cleaning blood from Cordelia's back. Thaddeus stood at the window, watching the horizon darken. She'll carry these scars for life, the doctor muttered. How long before she can travel? Thaddeus asked. Travel? Cordelia croaked weakly from the cot. This is my home. Not anymore, Thaddeus said softly. Murdoch's threat wasn't just bluster. By nightfall, federal marshals will be crawling all over this place. I won't run, she insisted, forcing herself upright. This is my land. Then you'll die here. Is that what you want? Before she could answer, the door burst open. Jimmy Reeves was panting, face white as a sheet. Riders coming. Fast, dust rising past the ridge. At least a dozen. Thaddeus checked his watch. Faster than I expected. He looked at Cordelia. You've got 10 minutes. Decide, run or stay. Why? She asked, barely above a whisper. Why save me? He looked at her, eyes gentler now. Sometimes a man sees something that reminds him why he's still breathing. Sometimes, that's enough. Doc Morrison handed over a small bundle. Back trail through Miller's Canyon. Ride hard and you'll make the territorial line. Cordelia clutched the cloth, voice trembling. I have no money, no family. You'll have me. The words hung in the air, thick as a vow. Hoofbeats thundered outside. Thaddeus extended his hand. Live free or die here, decide. Cordelia stared at him, then took his hand. They slipped out the back just as the front door was kicked in by armed men. Their horses waited in the alley. Thaddeus helped her into the saddle. Can you ride? Born on horseback, she muttered. Behind Murphy's barn, a voice shouted, there they go, ride. Thaddeus yelled. They galloped toward the canyon. As gunfire erupted behind them, pain tore through Cordelia's back, but she didn't slow. Thaddeus led them through the narrow pass, walls of stone pressing in tight. How far? She gasped. 15 miles in total. My father, she said. He owed money, just not to Murdoch. Thaddeus looked over at her. Who then? Marshal Kane. $500. Thaddeus cursed under his breath. That's why he's so hell-bent. You're the collateral. Bullets screamed past them. The canyon narrowed, forcing Kane's men into a single-file pursuit. "We need a way out," Thaddeus called. "There." Cordelia pointed to a steep, winding trail along the canyon wall. "My pa took me hunting up there." Thaddeus squinted at it. "That's suicide. It's better than Kane." A shot rang out, ricocheting off the rock near his head. "Your choice," she said, already turning her mare toward the treacherous path. "Follow me or face him." He followed. It was a brutal climb. The trail was narrow, the rock loose under their horses' hooves. Cordelia's horse stumbled, nearly pitching over the edge. "Don't look down," Thaddeus shouted. Behind them, Kane's voice echoed up the canyon. "You're trapped, Rockwell. Surrender." Another shot whined past. Cordelia cried out, her strength faltering. "Almost there," Thaddeus urged. They reached the mesa as the sun dipped below the horizon, bathing the prairie in gold and crimson. Kane was still close. A few miles to the north, smoke curled from chimney tops. Buildings. Thaddeus pointed. "The trading post. 2 miles. Can you make it?" Cordelia nodded. Though blood soaked the back of her shirt, they pushed their horses hard. Kane's roar echoed behind them. "She belongs to me." The trading post loomed ahead, a Pute stronghold, fortified and alert. Armed figures stepped into view, their faces stern and unwelcoming. "Who comes?" a voice demanded. "Thaddeus." "Rockwell," he called. Seeking sanctuary, a tall man stepped forward. "Joseph Crowfeather, my brother returns." "Federal marshals 10 minutes behind," Thaddeus said. "We need shelter. Bring her. We will speak inside." Cordelia collapsed as Joseph's wife gently helped her down and tended to her wounds. "She's not my woman," Thaddeus started to say, then paused. "She's under my protection." Joseph smiled. "Same thing, outside." Kane and his men surrounded the trading post. "You're harboring fugitives," he shouted. "Surrender them." Joseph stepped out with his warriors. "This is sovereign ground. Your laws end here." Kane sneered. "I've got warrants." "Then show them." Kane hesitated. He had none. This was personal. "You've got 1 hour." He snapped. The standoff dragged through the night into dawn. Inside, Cordelia stirred. "Did you really pay my father's debt?" Thaddeus nodded. "Felt right. $500 is a lot," she said quietly. "I've got more land than I know what to do with. Money's just paper until you find someone worth spending it on." "What now?" "My ranch." "Far enough. Kane won't follow. You can stay, or not." "And if I stay?" Thaddeus smiled. "I'll build another room." 3 months later, under the vast open sky, Thaddeus and Cordelia were married. He built that extra room, and they filled it with the laughter of children who grew up hearing the story of how their mother refused to break and how their father rode into town just in time to set her free.